Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sicker Than Others Recovery Comedy Podcast. This comedy podcast is here to help the broken, sick, or suffering laugh and to give loved ones an idea of the insanity we go through day to day. We're here to talk about the shit no one wants to talk about, like the pain of early sobriety or getting back with that sober house girlfriend that fucked your dad. You know, the real problems that bring us to relapse. While many would consider the content of this podcast to be gravely insensitive and offensive, we choose to find humor in the pain. We're not here to talk about cheesy slogans and fairy tale endings. We're here to talk about the reality of being in recovery and the broken behaviors that cause relapse and death. As members of NA and AA, we see many people in sobriety whose lives are riddled with unhealthy dependencies, sick relationships, insanity, and pain. This is an anonymous volume, recorded once a week among friends in and outside of recovery. If it helps you, awesome. If it offends you, we're used to it. Call your sponsor. Fuck off. The truth hurts. Hope you enjoy. Please reach out to us. We would love to hear your feedback on the show, and we'll address it during our podcast. We're at sickerthanothersrecoverycomedy@gmail.com, or check out our SoundCloud page at Sicker Than Others. So, we're pretty much going to start this thing off. This is our first episode. I saw we have 3 listeners just from our bio page.
3 whole listeners.
3 whole listeners haven't even started the show yet, which means people are hungry to hear the sick shit that's going to come up here. We're not going to tell you our names, right? So I'm just some random guy. Let's say I'm from New England. I got 3.5 years sober. I've been in horribly sick relationships in and outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm an AA member, and I'm with my buddy here. We used to get high in high school all the time. He's got 3 years, and we're pretty much in the grips of the opioid epidemic. We're watching prostitution, insanity, nasty sex shit go down, people getting raped, the whole nine. Alcoholics Anonymous in our area is a fucking shit show, and thank God we got good sponsorship and a good group to keep us going, but we're here to talk about the shit nobody wants to talk about. And I don't know. I hope you guys enjoy the show. And we're going to start it off by basically reading a little bit about the show first. We got a ghetto preamble. And it starts with, welcome to Sicker Than Others Recovery Comedy Podcast. We're a fellowship of sick people trying to share our experience, strength, and hope with the fellow suffering addict, alcoholic, whether he is in or out of recovery, and from family members. So if you're completely fucked up and you're listening to this podcast, or you're in sobriety and you're wondering why you're so fucked up still, hopefully you're enjoying this podcast. Our primary purpose is to talk about what no one else wants to talk about, in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, in the hope it helps somebody out. If you don't like what we have to say, fuck it, we're used to it, God bless. Call your sponsor, he's going to love our show. We already read that in the intro. But I'm going to introduce my associate here who's not going to say his name this time. This is our second round. And he's got 3 years. And actually, let me do a little start off. I got sober, long story short, after battling ketamine, alcohol, narcotic addiction my whole life. We threw our fucking lives down the toilet. I'm 27 now. I came in at 24 and I was a fucking wreck. My life sucked. There was nothing good going on. And when I had about 7, 8, 9 months, like a great friend of mine from high school who I sold drugs to, we used to get high together and go to meetings in the hope that we would hear something. Never heard something.
Good times.
Yeah, but he's here on the podcast with me, and we're going to record this volume every week in the hope we attract some listeners.
Hey, everybody. I'm Lou Wong, and I'd like to formally introduce myself. I am an alcoholic. I have 3 years of sobriety. What brought me in was living in a baseball dugout at my middle school, eating Cheerios every day and making phone calls to drug dealers, and then searching Craigslist for how to buy a gun to try and kill myself with. And eventually that got old, and tricked my parents into letting me back in the house for an hour, and I made a phone call to a friend, and it's been pain and misery ever since. Recovery it's hard, especially being young. And surrounded with such broken behavior, to say the least. And
most of our friends are dating in the rooms. Me and my fellow Lou Wong here, we've had sexual experiences galore in Alcoholics Anonymous, and they have ended with traumatic breakups and horror. And you don't come in and just get well overnight, and that's something we're going to talk about on the podcast. We have this deep, horrible spiritual sickness. And when you're having regular sex and you find a companion, you're in love head over heels, and the rest of your life goes down the toilet because you think you found a solution in a woman's meat flaps, when in reality you're still as broken as ever, and
nothing has changed.
Yeah, we've both learned to date outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God. The pain we've gone through and the pain we see others go through and the brokenness, and that's really what the disease is. It's about being broken. You put down the drink and the drug and you're completely fucking broken, and you're clawing on anything to love you, and it's just a sad, desperate sight, let me tell you.
For me, it was not just women, it was eBay. I loved eBay. I thought I could find God in clothing and, I don't know, fishing rods and anything that would make myself feel better. And none of it ever worked. And I found myself alone with myself, sober, and wondering why I still hated myself.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people do here in recovery. I mean,
pretty much. Any day when I could.
Well, what do you do for a living?
She smokes a little crack, folks, and we got a soundboard here. Forgive us, we're new to the podcast. We're just figuring out how this thing works.
Well, right.
I'm in with it, man.
We're going to talk about dead dick on the show. Let me throw that in there. Dead dick, broken relationships, being nervous in early recovery, trying to date, trying to go to a dance. Nothing like a sober dance to make you want to have a heroin relapse and commit suicide because you realize you have no social skills because you've been getting high your whole goddamn life. And, yeah, we're going to talk about that.
You want to eat my ass?
Yeah, I want to eat your ass for the night.
You what I want to eat for the night? You all the food I need for right now.
Anyway, you gonna take spit bad back?
Said I need a backiotomy.
Spirituality. God, if you listen, hell.
That is
That
a clip.
one sound clip reminds me of pretty much any single time I've ever been to an AA dance. I often would go there because no one else would want to hang out with me. And I would go there and I would look around the room and, yep. I would already imagine myself trying to hang myself. I'd immediately go to the bathroom and look for support structures to see if it could hold my body weight and see if my belt was strong enough to hold my neck. But
it's not supposed to not be painful. I'm trying to tell guys I work with now, we're both sponsoring guys, and you see people come in and they try and pretend like everything's okay. I had the blessing of when I came in, I called my first sponsor and I said, his name was Al. I said, hey man, my life's going great, I'm looking for a job. And Al said, hey, your life sucks. You got 3 weeks sober. Call me when you want to talk about it. Really a life-saving piece of advice. So, one of the segments we're going to do on the show today, we've kind of been on a ramble as we're trying to give you guys an intro to what the show's about, what we're about, but we're going to get right into it. And we follow these hilarious groups on Facebook. It's almost like an online Facebook meeting where broken people from all across the country reach out with horrible recovery. Like they've missed the message. They've never picked up a big book. It's just NA and Suboxone among the opioid crisis that we're facing in America. And they ask what we find is some of the funniest advice we've ever read in the program. And if you haven't noticed, we have a very sick, dark, demented sense of humor with very little empathy for people that are unwilling to help themselves. Whether or not that offends you, this is the reality of recovery. You either come in, you change who you are, and you get better, or you don't, and you stay broken forever. And the people who do change find that hilarious.
Exactly.
And it keeps us coming. And you see so much fucked up shit in AA. But the reality is, me and my associate Lou Wang here, we got no choice. If we stop going to meetings, we're going to relapse. So it's like we're forced to hang out with the most fucked up people in this program. And if you have any identification with that, thank God, because you're listening to the right podcast. So this guy reached out earlier today on a group called 12-Step Fellowship or some shit like that on Facebook.
something like that.
And he asked a simple question. I'm in Detroit, Michigan, looking for a meeting, ! You got to get out of Detroit, buddy. His name is Marlon Colton. He reached out about an hour ago in this Facebook group. And, I mean, my advice is simple. You got to get the hell out of there, man. Detroit's dead. Probably a lot of people shooting heroin around you. And I doubt you'd find a good AA meeting. You might find a really bad NA meeting full of, like, old-timey black guys with wristwatches telling you why they got so much money now, you know? And we're going to hit our next post here, which is, okay, this is Luna Lucidity. That's her Facebook name.
8 months of heroin, trying so hard. Sick of being judged for how I am getting by. Oh, well, that's your first mistake right there.
Yeah.
I take a small amount of Kratom every day. That's your second mistake. I don't know what the hell that stuff is, but God knows
It's like
not
if
helping
you don't
anything.
know, Kratom is like the Suboxone you can order on Amazon.com. It's like a opioid powder to keep you from going through withdrawal. You're using drugs.
These things are pretty much just Band-Aids for bullet hole wounds.
Yeah, so here, I do smoke cannabis. However, I'm not on maintenance meds. You take Kratom, you are. Whenever I try that route, I always went back every time. ... I went on psych meds and unbelievably found a way to manipulate my doctors to get the meds I wanted to give me mania, to keep me awake, to knock me out, put me into a lull. I'm my own worst enemy, clearly, sweetheart. I also have chronic pain. Recently diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. This girl's in her 20s. If she has rheumatoid arthritis, it's a fucking cop-out. This sounds like your typical broken woman.
She got rheumatoid arthritis from clearly giving hand jobs.
Yeah,
for drugs.
I mean, I got arthritis and my wrist hurts, so I need heroin all the time. I had to do something. I had to be the little girl who cried wolf too many times. I abused the opiates, used them for fun, and then when the pain got real, so reluctantly started Kratom over a month ago. I'm in the groups to keep myself on track since I have heard that's such a dicey situation to be in. Hoping I don't get torn apart like in most groups, I will not say I'm sober. That's why I said I had 8 months off heroin. I'm not trying to bullshit anyone. Sweetheart, let me put it to you simply. You're smoking marijuana, you're abusing Kratom for pain you don't have. It sounds like you're playing the victim role pretty hard, and I mean, our best course of action here is maybe an accidental suicide attempt, a bottom.
I would say probably just a low-risk suicide attempt in the bathtub, you know. Sometimes I like to cook my waffles next to the bathtub, and occasionally, sometimes the toaster just happens to slip into the bathtub before
And
you know it.
that's just early recovery. This is normal stuff. If you're not thinking about killing yourself in the first 3 years of your sobriety, I'd question your sobriety.
I don't even think you'd be sober if
Yeah,
you
I
haven't
think you're
thought about
still
killing
using.
yourself.
I think you're still using.
I like to say the second part of this whole thing is that she's using Facebook groups to get her through her day, and that's where you really go
And you know
wrong.
she's not getting good response in AA meetings, so this is where people come. That's what I've noticed. A lot of these people are going to meetings, they're being told you're going to die, your recovery sucks, and they just go home on Facebook, like everyone else. You know, they go to the post office, they're politically offended, and they're going to post on Facebook. So the whole world hears how they got cut off in line. And this is what people do in recovery. And
I actually kind of know where she's coming from. I used to do online meetings for a while, and I would snort a bunch of blues, and I would go on these online meetings, and I would say really powerful shit and sponsor people and really help people out. But in the meantime, I was nodding out at my computer desk and wondering why I couldn't get sober myself. I had a lot of sponsees, but did not work out in the end. Tried to kill myself yet again.
All right, so now we're on to our next post. November 29th at 4:02 p.m. This is from Bailey Edgington. So I'm going to read the post start to finish without interrupting, and then I'm going to read the most liked comment under it. I don't know how to word this clearly. Tell me what activities, hobbies you've incorporated into your lives during recovery or since becoming sober that have been beneficial to you mentally or physically. I'm not totally sure how to explain it, but I have this nagging feeling like I need to do something, and I'm not sure what it is. Do you write, read, draw, or run? And how has this benefited your sober life? So Clint Chandler wrote back. This guy's Facebook post is of an ICP clown mask, by the way.
So clearly he's sober.
Yeah, so he writes, try competition vaping, dropping mixtapes on SoundCloud, and trying to become as sober house rich, quote unquote, as I possibly can. Clint, I think you got it down. I think that sounds like the Narcotics Anonymous program that is outlined in the book.
I was going to say the only thing is missing is the whole getting both your arms tatted up.
Oh yeah,
with fun, loving
barbed wire tattoos.
Tons of sobriety tattoos that really don't mean anything because you're still shooting heroin in between the empty spaces between the tattoos. But at the same time, it looks like you're sober.
And I would definitely recommend getting a sobriety day tattoo. Maybe somewhere in your body. You are a woman. I see also in Bailey Edgington, this person who posted, she also has a picture of her and her child. So you know there's a child involved. That's life is being ruined by a woman who can't figure out what to do other than God knows what she's doing. She's clearly in early recovery. I'm sure she'll find herself in a very unhealthy, abusive relationship. And
I'm sure the father's gone because he realized what the hell happened and was just like, dear God, I gotta get the hell out of here. He's probably competition vaping, dropping mixtapes on SoundCloud and trying to become sober rich, and she's just getting onto it.
Yeah, he's trying to find a job. He's doing the right thing. I mean, what can you do these days?
Ridiculous.
It can't be ridiculous. It'd be ridiculous if you don't get none of this pussy.
It would. It'd be nuts.
Exactly.
All right, now we're going to go on to our next post here. This one's a little sensitive, but I found it hysterical. To bring this to a Facebook group, I mean, do you have a sponsor? Do you have a sober support group? Is this something you want to yell from a mountaintop?
Or even a doll you could talk to about this. So just
you might be better
off not
talking to
Facebook.
a wall or locking yourself in a dog crate. All right, here we go. This is Matthew Ryder. He posted on November 9th. So, ... My wife died on Friday of an overdose. It was pretty graphic for me, and I had to try and save her, but she passed. I've never really felt loss. Can anyone who is widowed tell me how to get through this? The service is Saturday, then I'm flying out of town to move in with my family friend. It's a beach town, so I'm actually super excited. I'm 3 days into detox also, so I'm pretty fragile all around. Please no negative comments. I just need some kind words, guys. Matthew, I am sorry, but you're on the podcast and you're going to get some negative comments here. I love this. I mean, it's a beach town, so I'm pumped. I mean, your wife just fucking overdosed 3 days ago, and you're 3 days into detox? Is there a coincidence here? Were you maybe using heroin with your wife, and then she died, and it was graphic? So now you're sober 3 days, and you're like, you know what? It's time to move. My wife's dead.
Time to pick up surfing.
Yeah, it's time to pick up surfing, man. You know what? I think we don't even need to give you advice here. I think you got it unlocked.
He's got it figured out.
You got it figured out, bud. This is one of our favorite posts so far. Just the casual, my wife died of an overdose. There's nothing like being completely numb to the world because the way you abuse drugs and alcohol. This guy actually might, he's asking for help on how to get through being a widow. I think he is more capable of getting over this than anyone.
Exactly.
I think if you were sober, it would really suck that my wife overdosed on heroin. This guy's like, hey, man. You know what? I didn't feel much when I was using either. I broke up with many girlfriends. I crushed lives. Watched my mother cry, and then I snuck in like a soldier on all fours to steal out of her wallet that night. And you know what? This guy's, he's got it on lock. I mean, you're good, dude. You're going to go surf. You're probably going to find a good meeting, and I bet you're going to get into a hot and steamy sober house relationship.
Make you forget all about that whole dead wife dying in front of you.
And guess what? That's good ammo in the rooms. Because we know plenty of women in AA that, my boyfriend OD'd after they cheated on him 14 times.
Yep.
And they use that as leverage to have more sex. So you got it, man. You got the story. I knew my wife just overdosed. I don't know how to handle it. You can pretend you're more sympathetic than you really are because the drugs have turned your soul black. And you can use that as leverage to get vagina in whatever beach town you're moving to. So, you know what, Matthew Ryder, God bless and good luck.
Oh, he's got life planned out already.
We got another one here from Brookshire Pattison.
She's from Anaheim, California.
From Anaheim, California. This is a guy, actually. He's got a woman kind of in the background of his profile photo.
Looks like a dead
That
baby.
must be who he's talking about. So he says, trying to get my fiance and I into detox. Can anyone help out? Currently in Orange County, California. I love this kind of thing. It's like you guys are running partners. And we need to go to the same detox, obviously. Why don't you try the same AA group after, too, and see how long you two stay faithful.
You guys should share a room together in the detox.
And I wonder how much time until your fiance's sucking your sponsor's dick for $10 to get a half a strip of Suboxone. But, I mean, I don't know how this happens. This is what we're talking about. The opioid epidemic here is bringing a new face to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's kind of a trashy one, And I'm not talking down on opiate addicts. Me and my partner here have had our experience with opiates, and we're on the other side.
I love opiates. I will never not love opiates. I've done every single opiate except for heroin. I was a test tube and got to the point where I was shoving pills up my ass. So I love opiates both in and around my asshole and in and around my mouth.
That's an addiction, man. You ever suck some dick for marijuana?
She's a crack whore.
Yeah, and, I was also addicted to Mary Jane Wanna, and I'll tell you, these kids think marijuana is not a harmful drug. It is a gateway to a bad time these days.
Yeah.
And, so that's where we're at in the podcast. We're going to move on to our next segment in just a moment. Right now, we're going to go into some of our personal experiences. Hopefully, that it'll be almost like an experience, strength, and hope. But with the brokenness, we're going to talk about brokenness. We got some topics here. I'm just going to riff here, and me and my partner are going to find out maybe what we want to talk about. We got bottoms and sobriety.
Bottoms and sobriety. Let's get right into it. Which bottoms shall I talk about? Because I don't know if you realize this, I've had many bottoms, probably more bottoms than most people I know in sobriety.
We heard a guy talk last night at a meeting, and he said that it's like when you get sober, it's like you've been on anesthesia your whole life waiting to get surgery. But then when you come into AA, they remove the anesthesia and just start operating. And I was like, that's fucking accurate. You don't feel shit. Then you get sober. For me, I started using it at 13. I was a 13-year-old adult, immature child. My colleague here is going through something currently, and I don't know if you want to talk about it on the show. It's up to you.
Sure. Why not? Well, I'll go into one of my first bottoms. I was 2 years sober, and I was in college, and I met a nice young girl. We started hanging out, we started talking, and, details of her life slowly started spilling out, and but at the time, it was like, this one's the right one. She's meant for me. But there were some issues going on. She was a bit of a stripper. And what I come to find was that she was a bit of a cocaine addict. And when I come to find, I knew that immediately.
This is all real, too. Like, he brought me out on a double date with this girl and her friend, and they were blowing
I tried to get my friend
night.
laid, and,
I turned it down. I couldn't do it. There was too much. It just seemed like a lot of drama. And I was also going through a dead dick period in sobriety. And if you fellas are not familiar with that, it is a painful time. And if you haven't been through that, absolutely a painful time. And what happens is you get so goddamn nervous in sobriety. I have panic disorder, anxiety disorder, all that wonderful shit. And I'm also, an addict. So occasionally, I'll get nervous in front of a woman, and I'll have a noodle penis. And I've had a couple bad experiences in sobriety with noodle dick. My colleague has as well. But let's go back to what happened.
Basically, as I brought my friend to this girl's house, he was kind of skeptical as to why they were going to the bathroom every 5 minutes. And, in my deep and dark time of denial, finally showing my friend the true, honest, proportions of my relationship with this woman, I began to question what the hell was going on, and I was like, they drink a lot of water, but meanwhile they were not drinking water that night. They've been drinking vodka pretty much all day, and it was actually just cocaine. They're doing tons of cocaine.
18, 19?
I'd say around 20.
Both hot. But, this is just what we run into, and we fall in love with these women, over and over.
I fell in love with this girl to the point that I had to put myself in therapy after we broke up. And we broke up because I found out she cheated on me and was very surprised by this, even though she was, in fact, a stripper and would come home with bruises from being hit by a gentleman at her gentleman's club. And the level of denial and sickness was so great that I was just like, I'll make it work. She'll grow out of this eventually. Everyone strips for money and does God knows what in the back room in the VIP lounge at the Snake Hole. So I don't know. It really did not go well. I fell in love with that girl.
I'm impotent, man. Get away from me.
Exactly. That was me to a T. I really thought I liked this girl, and the level of denial that I had with her was so great that, I just pretended that everything was A-okay.
That was actually our next topic, which is avoiding red flags.
Oh.
Which, when you meet a beautiful woman in sobriety, no matter how many horrible, traumatic mental health issues she has, we have a way of avoiding these things until the car's on fire. Things are just trash. We move into apartments. We just get so involved with people so fast as alcoholics, sober or not.
What happens is we are so excited that we've found someone that will accept us for us, that we completely jump over any red flags that we even possibly see, and we put it in the denial box. And we shut that box and lock it 6 times. And it's not until the relationship is crashing and she's setting your shit on fire and threatening to kill herself that you decide to, maybe I think I'll open up that box and just, review some of those red flags. And all it takes is getting honest to one other alcoholic about what's really going on for you to really hear what's actually going on. Nothing like calling your buddy after a long time of pretending that everything's going great and really dropping the truth on him to be like, oh boy, I've really done it this time, and I've done that frequently in sobriety.
And then another topic we have here is self-hate and chronic masturbation, which ironically is pretty much all one topic. And I'm on a medication that prevents me from ejaculating on my own time, which is just it's not pleasant. And sometimes I'm stomping. I live with my parents, so does my colleague here. We're both 27. Really successful images of sobriety. And sometimes I'm stomping the floors late at night. I'm seeing the white light at the end of the tunnel, and I just can't ejaculate. And it's talk about frustrating. Talk about addiction. I mean, the bottoms I may have hit emotionally and spiritually with masturbation alone and early recovery are enough to institutionalize your average man. But I keep going. And it's that kind of rigorous, consistency that keeps me sober on a daily basis, I believe it. And I've yet to meet a newcomer, man or woman, that hasn't at some point participated in what I would refer to as chronic masturbation. And, I've even made jokes about a Chronic Masturbator Anonymous Fellowship, which I think would be a great hit in the tri-state area.
I would just like to say that when I came in, I heard a lot of things, but one thing that stuck out was the 3 M's: meetings, masturbation, and making phone calls. But the key word was
Barbara Walters.
Exactly.
He told me about his lawyer. He had sex with my mama.
Yeah. And, that's how we live.
But for me, the masturbation thing got me through a lot of really rough times. And what I found was that as my disease progressed, so did the pornography progress.
Yes.
I started off...
What it took to get me off in my 90 days is far different today. I'm looking at... we have a thing... We're sharing images of diarrhea porn. Not that we masturbate to it, but it's almost like a research purpose. We're checking stuff out that we've never looked at. And, it's
Scat
funny.
porn got me through a lot of rough times.
Yeah, a lot of rough times.
My first year, I could just describe it as one word. Some people use the word serenity. Some people...
What's great about this podcast, too, is me and my fellow here, we are in the same AA group. We have the same AA sponsor. We also have the same therapist. And she may or may not tune into this first episode in a couple weeks. We have yet to decide if we're going to send her an email about this, but... if she is listening, we hope we didn't offend you in any way. This is pretty dark stuff. We're going to move on to another segment. We're just going to cut and dry here. We decided we're going to do a 10-step inventory at the end of every podcast. And we have told you a little bit about the podcast, but I do want to inform you, we're going to record a new episode every single week. And I hope you enjoyed the first episode. We're going to have guests on, and I think it's going to be a riot. We have a couple female guests lined up. Members of recovery. We have another guest lined up who's currently in Taiwan right now on business. Great guy. And it's going to be really fun. And so I'm going to let my colleague take over with the questions and for this 10-step inventory. And we're both going to answer at our own will.
All right. Well, this is the weekly 10-step inventory where we go over, a typical 10-step inventory. A 10-step is a nightly inventory that you do at night and kind of reviews your day. So we're going to get right into the first question. You guys, all 3 or 2 people that are listening to this insanity can hop along.
Oh, yeah.
Was I resentful? You're goddamn right I was resentful. I got a couple of resentments. I got a resentment against my, girlfriend who's on break with me right now because she can't stand to be around me because I'm so controlling and I'm such an asshole.
We push them away.
We really do.
We got a lot of demands.
We become so demanding that we force others to retaliate.
It says it somewhere in that book we read.
Yeah, and so I was very resentful. I have resentments against her and resentments against mostly the world for wronging me, so I think.
Mm-hmm. I had resentments against the world today, too. We have some snow. We're in New England. We're not going to say where, but I need new snow tires. I drive a 97. A lot of people have nice vehicles. We're in a very loaded area. And you know what? I blame Donald Trump. I blame socioeconomic status in myself. I need new snow tires. And I'm resentful. I hate the world and its people. We got a population problem. All right, next question. I'm angry.
All right. Was I dishonest?
You know what? It's only 2:51. I can honestly say I haven't been dishonest yet today. If I am thinking, yeah. Actually, I did. We went to a meeting earlier, and I chose not to share. I said, I'll pass, next person. But I thanked the meeting leader for her share. I was, in fact, not thankful. It wasn't a very good share. She sucked. She had 6 years. Get a better message. Get it together, Linda, whatever your name was. I ended up sleeping throughout the duration of the meeting. Wasn't very entertained.
Was I dishonest? I don't think I was dishonest, but it's only, once again, 2:50. It's a long day ahead. So
Yeah, we
I'm
got
sure
plenty
there'll be
more time
dishonesty.
to get dishonest.
Did I promptly admit when I was wrong today? I know
Not yet.
Hunter did, but I didn't, because I'm never wrong, because I am God.
Yeah. Do I owe an apology? Not yet. It's only days young.
Not yet, but I'm sure I will at the end of this.
Did
Did I do or say something today out of fear? That is a good question. My entire life has been driven by fear. and
So
today-
I imagine we both have completed many obstacles about fear today.
I was going to say, let's say, have I kept something to myself which should be discussed with another person?
Oh, I raped a small child in between the meeting secretary. I'm just kidding. That did not happen on record. But, nothing yet so far.
Let's see. Did I discuss? Talked about something yesterday. I brought up a lot of weird. I went to the diner after a meeting yesterday, and I got really into my nitrous oxide episode, which was a fairly fun episode of my life. And I had some newcomers around me, and I really educated them on the funds, the ins and outs of relapsing on nitrous oxide, because I've had a lot of experience with this. And let me tell you, people, a lot of people say that's a relapse. I don't believe it, because guess what? It's literally just a molecule attached to oxygen.
It's a relapse, just to clarify to our listeners.
I mean, technically it is a relapse.
Yeah,
Technically it
yeah.
is. I sought a chemical to get out of my... But at the same time, guess what? So I told a lot of people about my nitrous oxide fund. The fun of fishing out. I could write a whole book about it, but... I didn't keep that in. I talked about that out loud, and I think I'm a better person because of it. Did I think today of what I could do for others?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. You know what I did think about? There's a man who was at the meeting today, and he wears shorts, and he's heavily addicted to Robitussin. And I thought that, this guy, he shares a lot. He's a little crazy, and I thought if I just made a bathtub outside and filled it up with water, and I just took his head and dumped it deep down and just more or less stuffed his head in under the water until his body stopped struggling and
I
making
think
moves.
his family would thank you.
I think I'd be doing the world a great favor, because this man is insane.
Was I kind and loving towards all? We just answered that question.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely
a pretty big.
not.
Absolutely not. Did I reach out to someone in recovery today to see how they were doing?
No, I slept through the duration of the meeting, as I mentioned earlier.
I didn't as well. My sponsor left me a voicemail that he was very concerned for my my sobriety, and he wanted to talk to me. And I have not returned the phone call. Let's put it that way.
I also told my sponsee to call me back at 4 o'clock at about 12:30. I was free. I could talk. I just didn't want to have to talk to him until after this podcast was done, because I've been so excited about the podcast. I'm being that's completely honest right there.
Did I take time to connect with my higher power through prayer and meditation today? I actually did. I woke up and I said a prayer to get me through today. It's Saturday. The weekends are really hard for us young people in sobriety. I don't know if, I'm sure you guys are aware that the weekends is where all the fun happens, and when you're in sobriety, it's pretty much merely bowling alleys, trips to fucking cheesy whatever, Chuck E. Cheese, and heavy masturbation, and some crying on a Saturday afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
And basically just pretending that you're still having fun. Meanwhile, you're not really having fun, but you're just trying to hang in there as much as possible.
All right. Well, God bless the listeners.
I'd like to give one final message. God loves me and me only.
Yeah, and we're gonna trail out. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. We hope you're back next week. We're gonna publish this volume to our YouTube page and our SoundCloud. You can get all the info about us in our SoundCloud about or our YouTube about, or please reach out to our email address, which is also on our SoundCloud place. And stay sick and God bless.
I suck a little dick, smoke a little crack. Well, what do you do for a living?